Welcome. You're listening to the Bump Podcast, a place for believers of the unexplained, monsters, and paranormal. I'm your host, Bo Kennedy. Join us as we go face to face with what goes bump in the night.
But I didn't actually get into squatching until about 2018. I decided to pick up on some podcasts, and they'd been around for a couple of years before that, but I hadn't really downloaded any podcasting or streaming app like that until about that time. And I was actually started off on YouTube, and I had discovered Brett and Son's Mysteries to Search. I believe that's what his channel was, and rest in peace, Brenton. But I had come across Duke's channel, World Bigfoot Radio, and he happened to say on the one episode that I was listening to that he was from Missoula, Montana. And it was just really funny because my family had just moved to Missoula, which is actually like central western Montana. It's all mountains on the western side and plains and plateaus and prairies on the east side. But when he said Missoula, Montana, I had to go back and be like, did he just say what I think he said? So, I ended up finding him on Facebook and connecting with him that way. Shortly thereafter, however, he kind of got kicked off of Facebook, for any controversial things that he would say. We all know how that's going nowadays, where they like to censor everybody for everything. So he kind of flipped them the bird and went to MeWe. And so that's how I was able to stay in contact with him. But it was, I think, May or June of 2018 when I was like, hey, would we be able to go out, looking for evidence? And it was probably about 5 o'clock in the evening. And he's like, well, we have, another couple hours of daylight. So if we can go ahead and get out there and look for stuff, sure, why not? So we met for the first time and went out to what's called the Blue Mountain Range right outside Missoula. And after hearing that, and on different podcasts, I find there's lots of blue mountains out there, and they all seem to have Sasquatch around them. Yeah. I'm not sure if you've noticed. I mean, they're in Australia, they have the Blue Mountain Range, and that's one of their big hot spots. But first time out, we parked along the edge of the road and went down to an area that years previous he had camped out. And it wasn't long before we actually found my first foot track, and I want to say it was about 16 inches long. And you could see that the toes and the heel. I mean, it wasn't super deep, but you could see that it was a human-sized foot, or shaped foot, but it was a little bit bigger. So I got excited, found some tree structures, and one thing that I'd heard about on podcasts but didn't really hear about growing up was that they walk on all fours, not just on their hind legs. Yeah. And I ended up finding a couple knuckle impressions that evening, which was the first for Duke. He'd been researching since the 70s, I believe. Right. And that was the first for him. So he was just surprised as heck. He was like, holy crap, dude, nice find. Because, I mean, we put our hands up against it, and we're like, well, it looks like, like if a human with big fingers was down on, their knuckles like a gorilla. But we tried making sure it wasn't, deer or elk that had pressed down, but it wasn't that tapered triangular look like the hooves of deer or elk are. And it wasn't, didn't have curvature like a large canine or a cat, and it wasn't massive like a grizzly bear, because we got black bears and grizzly over here, and some of our grizzlies can weigh over 1,000 pounds.
Oh,
But
wow.
grizzlies, they have the 5 pads and 5 claws, which is
Mhm.
why sometimes they say, well, maybe it's not a Bigfoot track, maybe it's a grizzly track, with the foot and paw print overlapping each other, and that's why it looks like Bigfoot. There's the 5 digits. Well, this only had 4, which would to me imply something like on its knuckles like a gorilla.
Right.
So that was really exciting. And that first evening we'd found, I don't know, dozens of these large overturned boulders. I mean, they're probably between a foot and 3 feet in diameter. So I mean, they're not huge. A human could do it, a bear could do it, but it would leave out raccoons or skunks. And even with the bear, you'd find the claw marks if they were going to dig up for grub or ants or whatever, but it was missing any claw marks. So we thought that was kind of a interesting to say. And it was across the river from his old camping spot. So we documented that, and I think that's on a couple of his shows that I'm in. We show that because it's not normal to find those bigger rocks, probably weighing
Right.
between 20 and 50 pounds each at least, being overturned, in the same area that we're finding, tracks. And we've gone on a couple outings since then. I want to say between 2 and 4 every summer. He Now that I was able to give him a running vehicle, he can go out more often since he's unemployed. He's retired basically, and he's got um, what's it called, a disability. So he has partial disability claims right now. So he can
Right.
he can hike up the mountains for like a day or two, and then he's kind of done for a week or 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what he does is he'll take a weekend out, go try and document stuff, come back home and rest. And there's at least 3 or 4 outings every summer. I try and make sure I'm able to go along with him, because when we're out, I'm the one usually carrying the backpack full of all the goodies, the measuring tape, and I have bear spray now, and I've got this big full tang buck knife, and a couple other things. I got some filtering straws in case we get really thirsty while we're hiking the mountains.
Yeah, man.
And you will, if you're able to go on and look at those videos that he puts on, they're the ones that I'm on. I can't remember all the different episodes. I'm on like 3. The most recent was on Christmas, episode 109, part
Okay.
2. You'll hear me a little winded. I'm like, that's probably just because I'm, fat. But we are hiking up mountain and hills that are littered with tree fall. Some of it, natural. Some of it you can't find the basis for. But I mean, we're having to climb over all this rough terrain, and so it kind of makes sense that I'm going to be a little winded.
Yeah, no doubt, man.
So yeah, if any of you guys want to go check out his channel, you can get not just audio of what's going on, but video and pictures. And I think occasionally he gets some audio put on there as well. So I mean, it's just another channel that people can watch and listen to and learn what some people out in the forest look for. I mean, not everybody does the same thing. We don't go out there gifting apples and bars of food. We don't do the whooping and hollering, to try and bring them in. We don't do the clacking of rocks or wood knocks. we figure they're the masters of their domain. We come in, set up camp, and by that time they probably know that we're there. I mean, they're so fast and so silent that they can really ninja around the woods and know who's in their territory.
Yeah.
And so we figure, there's no point in trying to hide that we're there, and there's no point in trying to trick them to call them in. We don't do the camera traps. We essentially just kind of go through and, like, when we're around the fire, just do normal camping stuff. And when we're out looking for evidence, it's, tree structures and tracks, or not so much scat. That's not something that I really want to delve into. I don't know who really wants to pick up poop.
Right.
So it's not something we really go for. We just kind of go for these more anecdotal, evidence that something weird is going on.
Right.
If we end up catching something on video, that'd be cool. Nothing concrete yet, just video documentation and pictures of the tree structures and tracks. And up here, we got lodgepole pines that can be, 50 to 100 feet tall, and some of them are being used in these tree structures. So we're talking about, 6-story X's and teepees. Wow. So like I said, if you guys want to go look at his channel, you can see some of the stuff we document. These are not things that could be just placed there by human hands. And I really don't think, wind or snow load is going to do what some of these are, because the biggest X we found, it's 2 lodgepole pines coming in an X formation, but they're crossing at a singular pole that has a Y or a fork in it. So they're crossing in that fork. And then there's an offshoot, like a third tree that's near the base of one of the other ones, and the bottom end is actually sticking up. So that's kind of weird. And this last summer, you'll see on episode 109 of his channel, is cresting the ridge to the holler that tree structure is in. We didn't notice it the last time. I don't know how, but there's actually almost like a wall, like a straight line of these gigantic boulders that are probably almost as tall as me, and I'm 5'11", 6 foot with my shoes on. And it's probably about 15 boulders in a straight line on the top of this holler, this ridge. Is really weird. And we've found other megalithic type structures out there in this particular section of Montana forest. And mind you, this area where we find most of this stuff, it's closed most of the year. You can only get there, I want to say late spring to early fall, because the winter sets in up at those elevations much sooner and stays much longer. So it's really dangerous. It's only like a barely 2-lane road to get up to this mountain pass, because that's what it is. It's a mountain pass. So you have to be careful, sometimes pull over or slow down or stop to let a dually truck with firewood to go by. So, and then on one side you got the mountain going up. The other side you got like a 400-foot drop, possibly even farther. And so, like I said, you don't want to make a mistake, and it's really narrow. So you're not getting the tourist traffic like you would in Glacier National Park or one of those national forests. It's really light summer travel, and people gathering some firewood, because there was a forest fire there a couple years back, and so the forestry is just like, hey, cut it up, take it out, use it for firewood, no problems. You don't need a license or anything. They just, in fact, they encourage you to come clear this deadfall out, because it's a hazard. And with how the timber industry kind of almost got shut down, a while back, it's allowed these forests to overgrow, which of course, as we know, causes too much timber in an area, and then it can be fire problems in the dry heat, and it's never a good thing. But yeah, this there's a teepee that you'll see in those videos. and I might try and send to you. So, if you want to put it up on your channel, then people can kind of see what's going on. This teepee structure, it's, I want to say, less than 50 yards off the road, but like I said, it's thick in there, and you almost don't even notice it. And it is right next to a game trail that is right next to the creek that's up there. So
Wow.
I'm wondering if something like that would be almost kind of like a blind, just that way they can peek at, the elk or the deer or the moose that's coming through using that pathway. Because we found tracks on there before. This last year, we found 19-inch tracks up there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And, yeah. Well, they get bigger up here. I've had this discussion with people online. I'm like, down south where it's hot and they don't have as much cover and they don't have as big of game, they're generally not going to get as big. They can still get huge. I've heard of 9-10 footers down south, like in the in Texas, but up here they have to contend with grizzly bears, and they have to kill things as big as bison and moose and elk.
Yeah.
So they have to get really big. So
That's a monster.
It's actually not uncommon for some people to say that they've seen something that's 12, 13, 14 feet tall up here.
Wow.
That's what we consider the big males. When we're talking about 8 feet up here, that's a 15, 16-inch track. Those we consider, the sub-adults, juveniles essentially. And we feel like the reason why they're seen more often is, well, if you compare Sasquatch to humans, which age group doesn't listen?
Right.
It's the teenagers, the preteens, and the teenagers that they think they know everything, and they're not going to listen to mom and dad.
Yeah, the teenagers I have running around here. Yeah,
So you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
so
man,
mom and dad, they say stay away from the humans. They're dangerous. We don't want them coming in here. And you got the teenagers going, well, I want to go look at them anyway. So they come in, and actually this last time, we had gone squatching, but I left my teepee tent open, and like zipper undone, door wide open, and come back, and I noticed a single footprint right outside my teepee, and it was 13, 14 inches long. So that would, to us, I mean, it's not an exact science, but like with humans, there's generally a proportion of size. So, I'm about 6 foot tall, and my foot barefoot is about 12 inches in length. So and it's for most people too. I mean, like I said, it's not exact, but for most people, they fall within this boundary. So if it's 13, 14 inches, we're talking about 6.5, 7 feet tall. So it's still bigger than me, and I wasn't able to leave that deep of an impression because it was dry at the time. So like I said, I figured it's probably one of the juveniles, because we actually ended up going across the river where we thought we heard some noises, and we found another track the same size, and I think another one that was about 16 inches around over there too. And we're like, well, it's probably the teenagers coming in, checking on us, because I had set up an audio recorder, and he said that he heard something throwing rocks at him for a while throughout the night, and walking up on camp. And it's crazy out there, but it's really magical. It's really calm and peaceful. You got the river flowing there. It's cool temperatures in the shade, and there's pine trees. It's not a deciduous trees. It's not much relief bearing trees. It's all needles mostly up there. But it's just really peaceful and quiet. It's just like the perfect setting to go camping. Last year we actually had a mule female deer come into camp. Like she came up like 8 feet from me. I mean, out of the dark, and she went around the fire, and she started nibbling on some of the grass or whatever was laying down there. And we were sitting there chatting. The fire was going, and she didn't mind us at all. I even got up, went over to the other side of the fire near her, grabbed the bundles of dry wood that we had, the sticks, and end up snapping those, to break them up to feed the fire. She didn't react at all. I was probably 10 feet from her. She didn't care.
God.
And I think that it was in September, and not this last September, but the September before. And I think it was about the beginning of bow hunting season. So hunters are out. You'd think they should be on alert. Well, she didn't care that I was right next to her breaking branches. But from across the river, where we hear noises quite often, we heard the wood knocker. We consider it a mouth pop. It's something that they do with their mouth. But there was one single pop from across the river, and she alerted to that directly. Like, she perked up, turned in the direction that she heard it, and that we heard it, and she was uneasy, to the point that when we got up to go look for something that I thought I dropped earlier that day, and we couldn't find it, ended up it was buried in my bag. But we turned around to go head back to the camp. Well, lo and behold, right behind us was this same female deer. She was so scared of something that she left the camp and followed us up the river.
Wow.
And then followed us back to the camp.
So she was hanging out with you guys. Yeah.
All night, even when we got up, her and a few other does popped their head up as soon as we got out of our tents to start the fire. And so that was interesting, because I've never personally seen a deer hang around the humans all night.
Right.
It was just the weirdest thing. So like I said, stuff like this, it's not proof. It's not going to, convince anybody that Sasquatch is out there, but it's just weird things that happen out in the woods that seem to be unnatural. That, like I said, the teepee that's interlocking like 7 live trees. They're still growing, but how does that happen? We don't have a twister that's going to form up, 8,000 feet in the air on a mountain ridge to tangle a couple of trees right next to a river. It doesn't happen. Snow load is not going to get them interwoven 30 feet in the air. It doesn't happen. So what is it? And like I said, it's so thick back there that heavy machinery couldn't get to there without destroying half the trees. So yeah, a lot of this stuff is it's on a mountain range it's a pass during the summer, no access for most of the year, and we're finding a lot of this weird stuff. And there's obviously no signs of, heavy machinery to do it. And so we document it just to be like, see, something weird's going on. But the few times I thought I might have seen Sasquatch, I was driving along. I had just started driving along what's called Flathead Lake in the Flathead Valley. It's a northwestern Montana. It goes from Polson all the way to Kalispell, basically. It's right there by Glacier National Park. For anybody that wants to Google that, it's a beautiful area. But I had just started driving along it, and it was becoming dusk, so the sun was starting to set. It was having that reddish orange sky, and I just happened to look up this one off trail off the highway. So I was going about 60 miles an hour, but I had seen this large, tall. It wasn't like a rough shape. It was kind of smoothish looking, but it was kind of tall and in the middle of the track there. I'm like, that's kind of weird. But what got me thinking it might have been a Sasquatch is because originally I thought it might have been like a horse feeding. It was kind of like that smooth look when you're looking at the front or the back end of a horse. It's kind of got the little smooth humps. Well, I was like, well, maybe it was a horse, just eating and facing the direction of the highway, whatever. But I had gone back there later and had my wife take pictures of me in the area that I had seen this figure, and you can hardly see me. I'm, like I said, 5'11", 6 foot in my shoes, 250 plus. I'm not a small guy. I'm not, Andre the Giant, of course, but you could barely see me in the picture from where the highway was. And so then I made a representation of what I thought I had seen, the shape wise. and it dwarfs me. And I'm like, there's no way this was a horse. Even if it was a Clydesdale, there's no way it's going to dwarf me by like 2 feet up in the air and another foot and a half, 2 feet, sideways. But it wasn't, like a truck or farming equipment, which we see all the time up here. It's Montana, after all. So that was one time I thought I might have seen one. But like I said, I can't verify it. This last summer, there was a time when I was talking with one of the guys up there, and I had caught the sight of a large, dark brown figure that flashed from one tree to another about 50 yards in the background. And the guy that was standing next to me, we were facing 2 other people. He saw a dark figure flash by too. So it wasn't just me that saw it. But again, I couldn't verify it because I was looking at our group, talking to them face to face, and I just saw this flash of dark brown. And it was someone in the group actually walked over there, and he wasn't anywhere near as tall or as high in the bush as this thing was. So like I said, I can't say, oh, it was a Bigfoot. It was just a large dark brown flash of color. So that was a possible, second sighting, but it's just so fast, I don't know what's going on. Now I've heard, the mouth pops or the wood knocks. I've heard a whoop, at least one whoop. And have you ever heard the samurai chatter?
Oh yeah.
So this other location, it's actually up on another mountain range, right near a ghost town that we have here. It's called Coloma. And about 6:30 in the morning, I was supposed to call my wife's grandmother to wake her up or something. But I sent her a text instead because it was really crappy signal. I figured at least a text would eventually possibly go through if it had a few seconds. Well, at that time, after hitting send, I heard it sounded like a raven caw twice, and it transitioned into the kind of the samurai chatter garble, and it did it twice. And everybody else was asleep, but I was like, this is the weirdest thing. I've never heard that before. So, I mean, yeah, it wasn't, like Ron Orhead's Sierra Sounds and all that stuff, but it's just a quick few seconds of, something I can't, put in the animal category.
Right.
That was interesting. But yeah, so any of that Bigfoot stuff, if you guys want to check it out, it's World Bigfoot Radio. It's Brian Duke Sullivan, and he's the host and proprietor of that channel. He's a good guy. So yeah, any of that stuff you guys want to look at, whether you want to believe it or not, that's documented there. And then I guess I'll go into some of the paranormal stuff that's kind of happened in my life.
All right. Let me cut you off just before you get started on that. One, I will definitely check out World Bigfoot Radio, and anything that you want to send, I would love to put on the website or you throw up on the YouTube channel, but I don't want to step on Duke's toes there. So if you want to just direct people to World Bigfoot Radio, that'd be great. But you mentioned on top of that ridge, those boulders.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that came to my mind would be some kind of windbreak, or another kind of blind, because if you're up on that ridge, there's probably high winds and stuff like that. And I don't know, that's just, it sounds like if you're going to build a structure on top of a ridge, it would be to create a blind spot or to block the wind if you're going to sit up there for long lengths of time as like an observation kind of spot. I just wanted to comment on that. I think that sounds like something that would be way overkill for it to be man-made. I think,
that actually reminds me, probably about a mile from that, not this last year, but the year before, we'd gone up another incline, and we found some more megalithic structures that I was kind of alluding to, but then I got trailed off. I'm good like that. But we found this other one that kind of looked like a wall, almost like down in South America, where the boulders almost seem to be cut an exact fit. And if I can find that, I can send that to you as well. And on top, when I climbed up on top of it, one of the there was a crack, like where the boulders had split or separated, and there was about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch of what looked like mortar. It's a completely different rock, and it's almost like concrete. But again, this is a remote mountain pass in Montana, and we have barely 1 million people in this entire state, and not many people are taking this pass because it's so narrow and kind of dangerous, and it's closed off most of the year. So the fact that this is completely, away from the road and there's no trail leading up to it, it's kind of conspicuous being out there, because like I said, it's like an even layer of almost like concrete mortar. So it's I'll have to see if I can find that and send it to you, because that was one of the things that kind of blew our mind. Like, what is this? Maybe there was kind of an ancient structure back here at one point, and maybe they're guarding it. We don't know. It's one of those things that kind of ties all the weirdness in together. Like maybe Sasquatch has ties with aliens or something.
Yeah, man. I'm all about it.
We don't know.
Yeah. And you also talked about you said that the wood knocks, you guys tend to think it's like a mouth pop. You think it's like maybe like a tongue click, like off the roof of their mouth, like a kind of noise instead of.
It's very possible. One of our group that occasionally gets out there, he's able to do a tongue pop that is really loud and echoes through the forest. Me, I personally, if I was going to do it, I did it once before, and some of the group was like, knock it off, it's going to piss them off. But I open my mouth into a ball shape, and then I cup my hands and clap them together right next to my mouth, and it reverberates a loud echo. Oh, wow. And so that's what I do. And my toddler, actually, he when he was younger, recognized that as, oh, daddy's home, because I'd come home and pop, and he'd come running out of his room, daddy. I'm like, yep. So he recognizes that as daddy's home.
Awesome. Hey, give me one, man, if you can. Let me hear one.
Here, let me put the phone down and see if I can get that for you.
I hate to put you on the spot, but I don't hate it too bad. I want to hear it.
Oh, that's okay. Let's see here. See if I can set it down gently without making too much noise. All right, so.
Oh wow!
Probably doesn't sound too great here in the garage.
No, it sounded good, yeah.
But like out there in the trees, it just has an ambient carryover that just kind of echoes and reverberates through the branches and all that stuff. So out there, it sounds a lot better.
I can definitely hear how that would sound like a tree knock. Like I really can. It sounds kind of like a hollow knocking. I don't know if it transferred through the radio or whatever, but I can definitely hear it through the phone here.
Yeah, so I mean that's how I can do it. I can't do the mouth click. Like I've tried that 1,000 times. I just can't get it. Like some people can hold their finger up to their mouth and do a whistle through it. Can't do that. My mom can. Yeah. So some people can do it, some people can't, and it's okay. I'll stick to my mouth pop with my hands.
All right. Now I'm sorry to cut you off there, man. Let's go ahead and get into the paranormal, man. I love it.
Okay. Not a problem. So where should I start? Okay, when I was really young, before my father passed away, my cousins and my sister and I were at my dad's apartment and on the reservation. And yeah, that's where my dad is Blackfeet, the Blackfeet tribe. Picani, and we were there in one of the spare bedroom, and we had the lights off, and my sister didn't see it, but my cousins and I, we kind of saw this light blue, almost like fireball up in the corner, and it was just kind of like swirling and hovering there. It didn't do anything. And like I said, my older sister, she didn't see it, but my cousins and I did, and we just booked it out of the room screaming like, this is crazy, I don't want that. Maybe we were like 6, 7 years old or something, whatever.
Right.
So maybe it was our childhood imagination, but the fact that we all saw the same thing is kind of weird. Fast forward a year or two